Hello, welcome to this session on training and development. I'm Dr. Bargavi and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Management Studies in Bharat Institute of Higher Education and Research. So, in today's session, we'll be seeing about what is training, what is development, what are the features of training, and the differences between training and development. Before we start with this unit 1, we'll just brush up with the contents available in all the 5 units. So we see here that unit 1 is going to comprise of the overview of training. So it is going to comprise of definition, the features, evolution of training, then the role of training, and training for the organizational efficacy. Then Unit 2 is going to talk about learning. So, what is the role of learning while undergoing a training program? So, the meaning of learning, the components of learning, what are the different principles of learning, then the theories under which learning evolved, and the reinforcement concepts and the steps in the process of learning, and the impact of e-learning and technology. So these are the contents under unit 2, and in unit 3 we will be seeing about the training methods. So we have the traditional methods, we have the modern methods of training. So what are these different methods in which training is carried out in today's scenario? That will be seen in unit 3. Then unit 4 is going to talk more about the process of training. What are the different steps involved in undergoing a training program? So whether you should identify the needs of the training, or how you're going to design the training program, and how you're going to prepare the trainees for this program, how are you going to implement this program, how are you going to evaluate it. All these will be seen in unit 4. And unit 5 will talk about career development. So what are the different stages of career development? How are career development programs being implemented in organizations? What are its objectives? And what do you mean by employee development? How the computers are playing a role in training and development in today's scenario? What are the emerging trends in the training and development area? All these will be seen in unit 5. So these are the, you have a nutshell here comprising of all the 5 units. The contents which we are going to see in these units are displayed here. So coming to the next slide, we'll start with unit 1. And before we go to the slide of unit 1, we just have an image here that talks about training and development. What do you infer from this image? What can you understand from this image? We have a cloud which says about training and development, and you have different arrow marks being displayed. So what do you infer from this slide? It says that training and development is going to involve all these activities. So it is going to involve of teaching, it's going to involve retaining the content which is being taught, it is going to involve performance evaluation of the trainees, it is going to comprise of addressing the weaknesses, identifying your strengths, increasing the satisfaction of employees, it is going to supply the trainees with knowledge, it is going to coach the trainees, and it is going to support in succession planning. So training and development is a very interesting topic which is going to involve all these concepts. So coming to unit 1, we have what is the meaning of training. So Flippo has given the definition of training. He says that training is the act of increasing the knowledge and skills of an employee. So for an employee to carry out a particular task, he needs to have the necessary skills and knowledge. So for him to acquire knowledge, training is needed in an organization. So it is an organized activity. Training is going to be an organized activity, a well planned activity, which is going to increase the knowledge, which is going to increase the skills, it is going to enhance the skills possessed by employees. So it is going to also offer job security to employees, and this will result in more productivity, which is very much visible after the training programs conducted inside the organization. So we can say that the trainees, beside they acquire this technical knowledge, they also attain, or they are also able to develop their critical thinking capabilities or problem solving capabilities by undergoing the training program for a specific period. So this is going to result in a change in their attitude, and thus when once the attitude of employees is going to change, then the work ethics, the way they do their work, and the work culture is toned up inside the organization. So this is the background of training. So skill acquired through training is an asset to the organization, and it also gives employees a greater job security, the feeling of satisfaction that I've learned something today, I have retained this knowledge with me for a longer period of time. That feeling of gratification, and that feeling of happiness inside the employee once they are able to finish the training program successfully will result in their career growth. And it's not only a growth for the employee, it is also a growth for the organization. So there's a mutual benefit involved here. That is the impact of training. So if you see, training is required for both the old employees and the new employees in an organization. So it is going to make them fully prospective, or it is going to make them fully productive in their workplace. So within a short span of time, employees can become capable of doing all kinds of work in the organization if they are provided with proper suitable training programs. So it is necessary for employees to familiarize themselves with the new machineries or the new technological advancements that happen in the workplace. For this, training programs can be carried out by the organizations for their employees. So it is going to bridge the gap between the existing level of knowledge and the required level of knowledge and skill which is needed for an employee. That is the significance of training. Coming to the next slide, we talk about the features of training. Why, what are the significant aspects of training can be seen here. It says that training is a continuous process. Yes, obviously training is a continuous process, because see, it is something that is not going to stop over a period of time. It is going to continuously keeping on happening within the organization. Either at one level or the other, training is going to take place continuously. Then the second point says that training happens in all the levels of hierarchy. Yes, it is required in all the levels of the organization, be it the top management level, or the middle level management, or the lower level management, irrespective of whatever the cadre of employees can be in the organization. They require training programs which will make them more effective at workplace. So if I'm going to be a lower level employee, then if I'm going to be a blue collar employee, then I will require training programs on how to operate the machineries, or how to operate the instruments that are there in the surrounding. Or if I'm a lower level employee in an IT company, then I'll be requiring training to acquire knowledge on what is the process that I have to carry out my work, what are my requirements for the work. I have to understand and I have to undergo training programs. So soft skills training programs are given for middle level and higher level employees. So similarly, irrespective of whatever level of hierarchy you belong to, training is required to make you even more productive in nature. Then it brings a permanent change in the behavior of employees. Yes, as training is going to consist of learning. You are going to learn new skills, you are going to acquire new skills, you're going to learn something new, you're going to gain the knowledge in these aspects. So once when you indulge in learning, then that results in a permanent change in your behavior. So training is going to result in a permanent change in your way you behave. Then the next point is it is purposive and time bound. Yes, it is training is purposive in nature. It is required for some purpose. Either to develop the employees' understanding of concepts, or for the effectiveness of organization, or to improve the productivity of the organization employees. So for some purpose or other, training is carried out in a organization, and it is time bound. Yes, it is a time bound activity. It happens for a specific period of time. So generally when the training programs are developed in the organization, then they are designed in such a way that it is carried out for a specific duration of time. So either for 1 week or for 2 weeks, 15 days. So similarly, the design of training programs are time bound in nature. Then the next point says that training is going to pave way for sharing one's experience and wisdom with others. So in cases where there are training programs being conducted, if you see, the trainer imparts knowledge and skills to the trainee. So the trainer is sharing his wisdom which he has, he's sharing his knowledge which he has to those people who are in need of it. So the trainees, they learn from the trainer, and they learn from the experiences which the trainer has faced during his tenure. So it is going to share experience and wisdom. The last point says that training is going to improve the performance of employees. Yes, once you acquire knowledge, once you are able to gain new skills, once you are able to feel happy that I have learned this thing, I have a satisfaction inside me, and that satisfaction will lead to confidence. Once I gain the self confidence inside me, I'll be able to perform better in my workplace. So that will lead to a good productivity inside the organization. So these are the features of training. So it is a continuous process. It is present in all the hierarchy levels. Then it is going to cause a permanent change in the behavior of employees. It is purposive and time bound. It is going to share the wisdom and experiences, and it is going to improve the performance of employees. Coming to the next slide, we have the significance of training. So what are the advantages of training inside the organization? If you see the first point, it is the improved job satisfaction of employees. So training can ensure that the employees get job security and job satisfaction. So once I'm able to learn something new, when I'm able to acquire new skills, then that will improve the level of satisfaction which I have. So the more satisfied the employees are, the greater is going to be his contribution towards the organization. So he'll contribute even more significantly towards the organizational growth, and that will lead to the success of the organization. And the second point talks about high morale among employees. So as I am able to gain a higher level of gratification, my respect towards the organization will grow high, and that will in turn result in high moral values being inculcated in the employees. The third point says that you need a lesser supervision once training programs are completed. Yes, in the beginning, if you see, the trainees will not have much knowledge on how to perform their work. So a well-trained employee, if you see, they will be fully aware of what is expected from them, what are the requirements which the company expects from them. They'll be able to have a clear idea, and due to this, lesser supervision is required on employees who have undergone training programs. So this is going to lead to less utilization of manpower on supervisory aspects. So the span of control can be more, and better supervision and control can be enhanced by the organization. Then the next point says that fewer accidents can take place because of training. Let us imagine an example of a manufacturing setup. Now if you see the blue collar employees, these blue collar employees may have, or they may possess, a lower level of literacy. They'll not know how to operate huge machineries or huge devices which require a good level of knowledge. Now, in this scenario, the organization, if it is going to give training programs to these blue collar employees on how to operate devices, on how to operate the machineries, how to, control the equipments, then that will lead to fewer accidents in the workplace. The employees will become fully capable of performing their jobs effectively, and this will lead to fewer work-related accidents or mishaps in the organization. The next point says that there are a lot of scope for promotion once training is completed. So employees, as they acquire new skills, as they acquire new knowledge, they are able to perform effectively in the workplace. So this will enable them to enhance their chances of promotion. So they'll become a valuable asset for the organization, and the organization will consider them to give promotions in future. Then the next point says that increased productivity can be seen once training programs are completed. So it is that training improves efficiency and productivity of employees. So when employees, they have a reduced wastage of resources due to training programs, and once their outputs that they give are increased, then I feel that the productivity level of employees will go very high in the organization, and this is again going to lead to a reduced operational cost. So employees, when they tend to be more productive in nature, they will make less use of resources, and they will multiply their amount of efforts that they imply inside the workplace. So this will lead to reduced cost of operations and reduced production cost. Then the last point says that updating knowledge is possible through training. Yes, once training program is undergone by the employee, then he is able to update his knowledge, he is able to gain new knowledge, and this learning of new aspects is going to result in a change of his behavior. So once updating knowledge is possible, then that is the highest impact of training. So these are the different significance of training which we have seen here. And moving on to the next slide, we have the consequences if training is not going to take place inside the organization. While some organizations consider to provide in-depth training for their employees, there are few organizations that expect employees to learn on their own. So they expect new employees to acquire new skills and knowledge on their own efforts. They say that, this type of crude training method is often inadequate for employees. As employees, when they are new to organization, they will not know about the policies or the organizational culture which is existing. So they'll find it difficult to cope up with the existing practices unless and until they are given suitable training programs. So we are seeing here about the consequences of not taking or undergoing training programs inside the organization. So what are the first consequences which we see here? Discontented employees. So normally employees experience a sense of pride and well-being once they are able to perform a job better. So once they do a job perfectly, they have this sense of pride inside them. Yes, I have done this job very well. So if there is not going to be any training provided to employees, then they'll not be able to understand the work procedures, or they'll not be able to understand what is expected from them. So their goals can become a blur. They will not have a proper vision on what is to be done. So this will lead to a very low morale and high employee turnover. So as the attrition rate is going to go high, the job becomes less attractive to employees. Even though if they have a good potential to perform, they'll be, lagging the skills to perform their job. So the depriving organization can be corrected if training programs can be given to the employees. Then the second point says that low production can happen if training is not going to take place. So the rate of production is going to be low when the employees do not know how to perform their job efficiently. So the unskilled employees, they spend a considerable amount of time to seek help from others to perform their jobs. So this could lead to errors and accidents. If I'm going to keep on nagging my colleague to help me and assist me in doing my work, then when will he or she be able to complete her own work? That is not possible. So supervisors and experienced employees must spend considerable amount of time to monitor the unskilled employees and to have a supervision on them, to have a education given to these kind of new employees so that frequent interruptions of work doesn't happen in the workplace. Then third point talks about lack of safety measures. Why is a safety measure going to impact the training? When untrained employees are more exposed to injuries as they lack this knowledge and skills required to work on fast moving machines. So I told you the example of a manufacturing setup where there are a lot of blue collar employees. Now when these blue collar employees don't have the required literacy to operate the machineries or to make use of the equipments, then if they are not given proper training in place, that will lead to mishaps and less safety protocols being followed. So training programs are necessary, and this consequence of not giving training will be very high in the manufacturing setups. Then the next point talks about loss of customers. So when untrained employees are there in the organization, they cannot produce good quality products. Their outcomes will not be of good quality. So this may result in customer dissatisfaction. They may tend to change from one brand to another, and this is going to lead to decrease in sales, decrease in profits, and loss of customers and lack of growth opportunities for the organization. So loss of customers is one of the consequences if training is not going to take place inside the organization. Then employees are left behind. How are employees left behind? See, the employees in the organization, they should be able to equip themselves with the latest technology, and they should be aware of the developments that take place in their external environment. So, if the training is not going to be given at the right time to the right employee, then they will be lagging behind the rest of the world and their competitors if they are not going to have the updated knowledge. So they are left behind of everyone else. Everything is going to move at a rapid speed in today's scenario, and the employees also should have to keep a pace along with the fast moving environment. So training is essential to keep these employees updated with the latest developments. The next point talks about demotivated and demoralized workforce. So an employer, he has to have a greater responsibility for motivation, and he should be responsible for the well-being of his or her employees. So the team, for it to function effectively, all the members should be able to contribute to it, and they should be fully engaged and dedicated to the organization. So a good training program is required for motivating these kind of team members, and in absence of training programs, these employees can have a blurry career vision and they will feel very much undervalued. So as there are no development opportunities in the organization where training is not going to happen, the employees will feel demotivated and decentralized. Last point talks about wastage of resources. So how is this going to take place? See, when adequate training is going to enable the employees to use the resources effectively and optimistically, if the employees are not provided training in the other scenario, vice versa, then there can be unnecessary wastage of resources in the organization. So, during a longer period of time, the organization will not be able to afford these kind of unnecessary expenses or unnecessary wastage of resources, and this will affect the productivity of the employees and the profitability of the organization. So to conclude, we have by training we can turn any crisis into opportunity, and without training we can turn an opportunity into a crisis. So that is the significance of training. If you see the next slide, it talks about the evolution of training. So how did training evolve over a period of time? It started with the apprenticeship. So apprenticeship had began around 2000 BC, and it evolved in ancient Egypt. So this was in the form of writing boards, or for the apprentices to prepare scribes and to draw images. So these boards can be used again and again by wiping off with the ink and by adding a fresh coat of whitewash to them. So with these methods, apprenticeship was evolving over 2000 BC in the ancient Egypt. The next step that happened during the evolution of training was Indian Gurukul system. So we know what is Gurukul. We know how to, in the ancient times, the students were involved in learning in a Gurukul. So Gurukul was an ancient Indian education system where the Shishya or the student is going to stay with the Guru, who's a teacher, and he's going to study, he's going to learn and get exposed to real life practical situations. So students often joined Gurukuls or ashrams between their 8 to 12 years of age, and they stay with their Guru, the master, for around a decade or 12 years without paying any fee. So they get an opportunity to study, to play, to eat and sleep together, and they also perform all the household chores of their master as they learn things. So Gurukul had its origin since the Vedic times in India, and this still existed in India till the advent of the British rule, and this again got transformed into a systematic learning process in the recent times. Then the Prussian simulation, this was the third event that became part of the evolution of training programs. So today's Prussia consists of Germany and Poland together. So this, in this place, the military officers, they were used to train from the year 1812. So they got exposed to war games. There was a simulation, a setup of a war place or a wardom, which consisted of a war based game that is built around one particular place. So a specifically designed table that divided this game into a grid system with gaming pieces and dices were seen. So the rules and the regulations for the playing the game during this formation in the 19th century, it has been modified several times, and these war games were instrumental in establishing several conversions for the modern society. So for the modern war gaming techniques, these were the past experiences that happened in Prussia. So, they used maps, they used color coding of opposite armies' troop, and they depicted the troop movements. All these took place during the simulation events of Prussia. So, this was one of the important events that paved way for the evolution of training. Then came the England's industrial revolution. We all know what it is. So, in England and in the 19th century, if you see, several factory schools were created and workers were trained in the classrooms by this method of vestibule training. So, a classroom setup was there, and the method of job related education was implied here. Educational facilities in and real working conditions were given to the trainees, and trainees would be supervised by a skilled trainer who had provided simulation for on the job training practices. So this was a method that combined the benefits of a classroom and with the benefits of hands-on training. So industrial revolution took place in the next step. Then World War II. How did World War II give rise to the evolution of training? There was an urgent need for effective training to take place during World War II. So, an advisory committee was formed by the National Defense Advisory Commission in the US, and this was developed, this gave rise to a systematic training method called the job instruction training. So, they'll give you instructions when you're doing your job on what are the steps that has to happen next consequently, and this led to the evolution of training practices. So JIT was all about imparting a step-by-step instruction of how the job has to be performed, and how to go without compromising on the quality or the output of the trainees. Then came the role play instruction method. So this role play instruction method was founded by Dr. Jacob Moreno. He was Austrian who was a leading psychiatrist, and he studied psychology so much. He's a sociologist thinker, and he came up with this designed method for training programs. He said that role play is one of the effective methods of training. When trainees are given roles to enact, they actually practice the role and they perform it effectively. So this enabled them to deal with the situations and take timely and appropriate decisions on their workplace. So this became a very popular method. They were able to equip these employees, the trainees, with practical problems, and this enabled these trainees to take decisions very swiftly for whatever the problems they faced because of having a good role play method. So this is one of the evolution of training. The last method is or the last phase of evolution in training is the present day scenario. So if you see, while the methods of training like apprenticeship or vestibule training or role playing, these all have immensely progressed. The training techniques today used by our organizations in many sectors are computer based training and web based learning. So we have e-technology, we have e-learning methods, we have e-training methods. So everything is virtual today. Even the learning has become virtual. So today's scenario is more of computer based training and web based learning. So these are the different events that took place during the evolution of training, and we've seen around 7 to 6 methods or 7 to 6 evolution of training here. So with this, I think we can end this session for today, and we've come to the end of the session. I hope you all enjoyed this session, and please be safe, take care, and stay blessed. Have a nice day. We'll meet in a next session with an interesting topic. Thank you. Thank you for staying connected.